Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by this quarter's sponsor, Playground, the all-in-one childcare management software. We're all about managing monkeys and saving you time at your center. With this platform, you can. We're proud to partner with a team that's as committed to your success as we are. Learn more at tryplayground.com. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
Welcome back to today's conversation. And I'm so excited because we've got some more folks from the South joining us today. And I'm going to have Danielle introduce herself, kind of tell us a little bit about how she found herself in early childcare. And then we are literally just going to have a conversation about problem solving. And sometimes that first step is identifying what the problem is to begin with. So with that, Danielle, go ahead and introduce us to yourself and a little bit how you got started in early childcare.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on. I have been in the early childhood industry for almost 35 years. It'll be 35 years next month. I like to say that we are one big family where we are. We have seen challenges. We have seen excitement, growth, scared times, happy times, all the things in between. But our favorite part of it is watching all of these little lives grow up. So, so thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So with that much experience behind you, did you find yourself in the industry because you had a child and you went, I need to find myself a job where that works? Or was there another avenue?
It's a very unique story for us. So I actually started taking dancing from my then boss at 4 years old and continued it through high school. I tried college, wasn't my thing. So she owned a childcare center that she opened because of her children and offered me a job. So I started working at that time, and the son that she opened the child care center for at the time, I was around when he was born, is now my boss. So we are more like brother and sister. So that's kind of the quick version of the backstory. I've actually been with the family, I should say, for 46 years. I'll give my age away a little bit. So that's how it all came to be. It just, I believe that things happen for a reason, and this journey was definitely one of my big reasons.
I love that story. So we will drop Jonathan's episode in the show notes. So if you would like to hear more from her boss, he has been a guest before. We will go ahead and drop that story in so you can get both sides of the story, because it is kind of fun. So you've been in the industry, you've been exposed to all levels, you've expanded, but what are some of the problems you guys have really struggled with over the last couple of years as, let's just say, everybody kind of decides to be a little more modern and a little more strategic with how we spend time and money?
Yeah. So it's hard. And look, in childcare industry, especially, it's hard because we all know that you don't get into childcare to make tons of money. You do it for the love of the children. And so that's where you have to really get creative in your bookkeeping, your hiring, your
not too creative in your bookkeeping.
No, not too creative. No. We like to say that we do things by the book, but
just checking, because you said creative bookkeeping, and that is a whole other connotation.
Like, wait, that's a different episode. So it's a challenging field, I guess, to be in, but such a rewarding field. And I think that's the thing we have to remember. But we did, we had some ups and downs with software that we're using. And it's really hard when you have 4 centers to find things across the board that work for each center and each person running your centers.
So tell me more about that. Is that because of personalities? What do you mean by finding things that work for all 4 locations?
I think personality is definitely a key part, but also just, you have some people who they can run a great center and they deal with the children really well, but they're very scared of computers, or, you know what I mean? Or, you may have somebody who's really good at computers, but they're not so great at the paperwork part of it. And so it's just finding all the little ways to make your team align. We have been very fortunate. We have people that have been with us for a really long time. But again, that also comes with some challenges because you got to get them all on the same page when you make any kind of change. Because what we want is for our centers to run, not identically, because we do give them their own leeway, but we want them to be similar in the way they're run. And so it just, but I will say, when you give your team buy-in on the changes you're making, it makes those changes that much easier. We don't just do it without them getting to give us their input.
So, tell me a little bit more about what that looks like to your program. I don't care what change you're talking about, but what does that look like? Because I know that I have been part of change more than one time, and it was more of a we're going to tell you we're doing it, and less of a conversation.
Yes.
So, how did the conversation happen? How did people get to feel like, if they disagreed, that maybe their voice was heard? What was some of that look like?
And I will tell you, that was a learning curve for us, because there were a few times that we were like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. Would they do it? Yes. Would they do it wholeheartedly? No. And so Jonathan and I actually realized that we had a great team. So why not give them? So now what we try to focus on is, hey guys, we're out there looking for some new software or new playground equipment or whatever we're looking for at the time. We would really like your input on it. And they are comfortable enough now. We've done it enough with them that they're not scared to say, hey, this is why I really don't think that's going to work. Or this is the way I think we should go because it's just going to work better for the kids. So I think it's just all about giving them a voice and allowing them to use that voice either way, not only for the good, but you have to listen to the not so good too sometimes.
Do you have a couple of great starter questions for a director who might be listening to this, or an owner who goes, ooh, maybe I don't do that as well as I should? Do you have some tips on
sure.
how to open that conversation?
I think just being open-hearted, not open-minded, but open-hearted. So I talk a lot about the heart just because that's me. And I treat everyone I meet like family, like you're part of my family now. But I think if you're open-hearted, you're more in tune to the people around you and the way they work and operate. And so it allows you to listen more than react. A lot of leaders tend to listen to respond instead of listening to understand. And I think that is a huge part of it. And once you stop and start listening to understand, you know where your team is and you're willing to meet them where they are. So that's my little take on it.
I love that. That's a great tip too. And I've heard similar statements, and having been one of those people who definitely, I'm more notorious for listening to respond than to understand. It definitely, I don't care how old you are as a leader. I don't care if you're a new leader, if you've been a leader for a long time. Sometimes that takes some real work. So coming up with your internal strategy for that, like mine is literally, I gotta take notes. By taking notes, it keeps me concentrated on what they're saying and less likely to blurt out my instinctive response.
Yes.
I can tell on podcast episodes where I'm taking notes versus ones where I'm not, because if I'm not, I am really quick to respond because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. And so sometimes that tip can go in a lot of different places, not just getting real honest feedback from your leadership team. So with 4 locations, I would presume you guys have somewhere between 4 and 8 additional administrative team members. How big is your administrative team total between the 4 locations?
So we have 7 on site. So we have one center that's a little smaller than the other 3. So there's one director. The others all have a director and assistant director. And then we also have our C-suite in our office here. So we have 4 here. So we have 11 total in our admin bubble. And so, something you just said though, and we're fixers by nature, right? And so when somebody starts talking to us about a problem, we want to say, oh, well, let's fix it. And that was so me about, I'm going to say 8 or 10 years ago. But once you start really honing in on that understanding part, it just changes the whole game. It really does. So 11 of us total. Do we all agree all the time? No, absolutely not. But we all understand each other enough and are willing to work with each other enough that we give everybody the opportunity to speak their mind.
That is so, I mean, that's just refreshing to hear that there are people who are trying really hard. And I know that we've got folks who are listening that are like, well, I try really hard.
Yeah,
Right.
And
And that's kind of where it stops, is that they try really hard. And I think it's really important as leaders to remember that sometimes trying is better than not trying.
Mhm.
Sometimes owning, like you said, 8 to 10 years ago, that wasn't you. I am really quick to say I still haven't mastered that. And, there's taking notes, giving yourself an agenda, even for things like small conversations or things you don't think you need an agenda for,
Mhm.
I think is really, really important, because that way, as a leader, you stay with the mission of the original conversation. At least you have the intent. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to stay on target,
Right.
right? It doesn't mean that you may not have a little side something
If
happening,
only
but
life didn't come with speed bumps, we would be okay. But we are gonna have the speed bumps.
oh, the speed bumps, the side tracks,
The
like,
road
you know,
closures. Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, I mean, the detours alone, right?
Right.
So let's talk about the issue that you guys, your biggest recent issue,
Sure.
that you guys made some big changes as a result
We did.
of identifying the issue. So let's start with what did the identifying process look like, and
Okay.
then we'll talk a little bit about that process to make that change.
Absolutely. So in December of 2025, we decided it was time to make a move with our software, our childcare software. Um
So why?
very
What was the reason? What was the
so
problem you were having with your
yes,
previous
there were
platform?
some customer support issues. There were some very severe, really, accounting issues. People that weren't with our center anymore for years were suddenly being charged. Like, it was wild. It was really wild.
Ooh.
And so, we started reaching out to customer support. And listen, customer support for us is everything. If I can't get you on the phone to help me figure it out, then we. But when I tell you scary, we have been using the same people for, I'm going to say, at least 18 years. So when you're using them that long, I was so used to it, and creature of habit right here, right? So I know these things in and out, and then you say change, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. So we reached out to our team. Do y'all think it's time? Do we need to do? And they were like, yes, we need to do something. So we started just kind of,
So, okay.
yeah,
I just want to clarify, because I
yeah,
think I heard you right. You had clients who hadn't been clients for over a year who got billed from the platform you had been
correct.
using. And so therefore you then had to go back and credit and find them and
Or
apologize.
and
And
call them and say,
oh
listen,
my gosh.
I'm really sorry. I know
I
that.
mean, that's more than a security breach. That's a breach of trust. I mean, we work so hard in this industry to have our families know, like, and trust us that,
Yes.
oh, I can't even,
Yeah.
okay.
And,
So
it's okay if it's
I'm
a
just
parent.
curious. Are we talking like one or two people, or are we talking like it
uh,
ended up in like thousands of dollars kind of an issue?
I'm not going to say thousands of dollars, but I will say 1,000. And I'm going to say we had to call probably 10-ish families between the four centers. And it was no rhyme or reason. It wasn't like it was everyone from August of 2022. You know what I mean? It was
Cool.
just a couple of them were people, unfortunately, who had left us owing money, who had a balance on their account. But still, I mean, however many years later, that account information is not, we don't have the authorization to do that. So it was some very humbling phone calls that had to be made, and there was no solution. And I think that's the biggest problem. Like, if they had said,
Did the platform at least take some ownership? Did they at least explain, like, did they try to
they
do a
knew there was
backup
a
or
problem,
something? Or
they knew there was a problem. But to this day, and we have now been with our new software for 7 months, no, 8 months. I still don't know what the reason. Like, we still don't have an answer. There's a lot of we were updating this, we were doing that, and this could have caused this, and this could have caused that, but no definite answer on why, when, how. where, you
Oh,
know, so
that sucks.
exactly bad.
There's no other phrase for that. Okay,
Really bad.
so yeah, so that's a good reason to. I mean, even if you had only been itching before, that would have been a
Yeah.
sway, I think, for anybody listening.
Yeah.
So if you have a platform that all of a sudden you had a major breach
Mm.
in confidentiality, you've now charged clients who haven't been clients. That is that I can't even imagine. Okay. So
Right?
so you had this major issue.
Yes.
How many different platforms did you guys explore? What was that process? Who
Well,
decided where you were going? Was that
the first thing we did was put, there's all these support groups for childcare centers. And so we just kind of started putting feelers out. What's everyone using? Has anyone changed recently? What are your pros, your cons? One thing we had always wanted to track and we really didn't do a great job of was having a CRM portion of a software where it would track our calls to tours, our tours to enrollment, and all of those kind of things.
okay?
So we were like, okay, while we're making this switch, let's make sure it's something that can also handle all of that. So I'm going to say we did a demo with only two companies. And
Okay,
then,
things you looked for was customer service,
yes,
and it sounds like a CRM. What were some
right.
of the other things you were looking for as you were starting to filter out? Because we know there's a lot of software right now, right? And probably more in July and August of 2026 than we've ever had. We have, people popping up right and left with a chat this and an AI that and a I've got the solution, or we've been
Yeah.
a CRM forever. So you had two major issues. What else were you looking at?
We also wanted a software that we could, and now I'm going to use this term because I've heard it from them, but I didn't know I needed it at the time. A set it and forget it.
Mhm.
So I want to set everything for this family that I need to happen, and I just want the software to do it. I don't want to have to go in every week and check it. I don't want to have to, and so a set it and forget it feature. We also wanted something. A lot of times, softwares have two separate platforms for their like accounting part and their staying in touch with their families part. And so we
Mhm.
wanted a software that it was everything. We could do our billing. Our parents could see their billing live, and we could also communicate with them through the software. With the parents, with the teachers could communicate with the parents, and everything we've used prior to this, it was you had to have an app for the teacher to communicate with the parent. You had to have a separate app for the accounting part. They couldn't always see. So we just wanted one software that would just make our life easier.
Gotcha. All right. So let's talk transition, because even
Mm.
once you make, so I would presume you, based on our previous conversation, you probably had conversations with other members of the leadership team. So
Yes,
not just the two of you. Out of the 11, how many of you had, were all 11 involved in the conversation?
11. Yes.
All 11 of
Yes.
you were involved in the conversation. What were some of the concerns about making a switch, other than it's been 18 years and we've been with the same platform?
The questions I got were, how much time is this going to take out of our day? Because we all know if you're running a childcare center, you don't have much of that.
Right.
How hard is it going to be to learn? Let's see what else. Are our parents going to be upset? So your parents get used to what you're using too. And so then you're like, hey, we're switching to this whole. So how are we going to roll this out to our parents? That was a big one. And I think that was pretty much the only three that they were worried about. Time was the biggest thing.
Okay.
Am I going to have to spend the weekends here getting everything transferred? Because, that was another one, transferring information. Are we going to have to re-input all of this information again? So those were the big ones.
Gotcha. All right. So you've decided, you've made a change. How smooth and beautiful was that?
So it was smooth-ish and beautiful-ish. We did run into a couple of snags, but this is what I will say. The customer service part of this software is outstanding. So when we did have those not so beautiful-ish moments, they were right there to either, and listen, they didn't have an answer every time. But the good news about it was there were things we were running into, and then they immediately, I'm going to say immediate, within a week, would have what we needed up and running. So they're very, what's the word I'm looking for, Kate?
Responsive?
Responsive and proactive when you come up with a problem. We ran into a couple with the CRM, and it was never, well, sorry, this is just how our software is. It was, oh, that's a great idea. Let's see if we can implement that for you. So that was huge for us.
Now, okay, so let's talk about implementing, and then we're going to kind of wrap this up, only because I want to make sure that we think of it through one standpoint.
Sure.
So when we start talking about that whole implementation piece, have you noticed something where they've made an update and it maybe didn't work backwards for you? Or do you think it only worked for other people? Like when they're making an adjustment for you, are they making it for everybody, or is it just for you? Like, is this
No.
custom?
Well, this is my understanding, is that once they make a change, it's available to everyone. I'm going to give you for instance. So we have 4 centers, right? All of the funds come through this main office. So our directors take it, they mark it down in the software, but then it comes here to get double checked and deposited. So we've always been able to have a deposit report. Here's the cash, here's the checks. We didn't have that with this software, and we didn't realize it till after we implemented. So we reached out to them. We told them, but now it's there. We can use it, but so can any other person that's using their software anywhere. So it's around the board. Yeah.
Well, I love hearing that you've contributed
Right?
to growing and working with the platform. Yeah. So one of our first guests for this series actually was involved heavily in the CRM. So the CRM didn't really exist when they came on. And so they were very involved with like regular weekly calls with the platform to be involved in what they personally needed for a CRM. And so this is where I'm going to be just my little bit geeky self. So there was a time in the late 90s where I was actually a database developer.
Oh.
And so as a result, I am very aware that sometimes when we add features that weren't part of original design, we can totally mess up a back-end map. And I think that that is what some of the older software that was built 90s and earlier, or even, early 2000s, when you start developing in that format, it makes it harder to do an update. So again, it's not like they were trying to be difficult. They just had an older system. So tell us a little bit about the software that you switched to and what was your final deciding factor?
Absolutely. So we ended up switching to Playground software. I think the deciding factor was the amount of support and the ease of use of their software. The set it and forget it was because I do the accounting. That was, I was like, okay, can we do it? Said, that could we do it yesterday? But I think honestly, and even to this day, the customer support, I call it the magic blue bubble. So when you're in their software, there's this little blue bubble at the bottom. And anytime you have any kind of question, you click this magic blue bubble and then someone just appears like to help you. And within 5 minutes, you either have an answer or you have a date that you're going to have a solution. So to me, that's just, I pray that it stays that way the whole time. But so far, we've been with them right at 8 months. And the magic blue bubble is probably my favorite feature right now.
All right. I'm just going to, that's good. Okay. So Marie, when you're listening to this, that's the name of this episode. It could be because I am old enough to remember the blue light specials with Kmart.
Yes.
And so I am like, oh my gosh, we have our own blue light special.
Yes.
And so the flashing blue bubble is absolutely, I still tell stories about their grandma feature. If you've never heard that story, when the 3 founders started the software, the whole goal was, could grandma figure it out?
Yes.
And grandma was still in the industry at the time. And so I think that is really, really important. And as somebody so I have a whole private tech life, and so I try not to really get into that too often, but one of the things I absolutely hate to do is ever to update my tech stack. So if I have to update a tech stack, whether it's a new phone, new computer, new software, Lordy be help us. It's a whole new everything software. We did that about a year ago, and we've now done that three times in the last 2
Oh,
years. And yeah, it makes my stomach hurt just thinking about it. So I think that knowing your ease of use, your
mhm.
set it and forget it, and even your customer support magic blue bubble, I think really do hopefully help folks at least to go, okay, maybe this is something I need to check out. So
Yeah.
if people want to get in touch with you and ask you questions,
Yeah.
either about what it means to be a heart centered leader, or even about your experience with the software, how can people get a hold of you? Obviously, we'll have it in the show notes, but
Yes, absolutely. I would love, and listen, that's one of my favorite things in life is to share good, bad, ugly, great, listen, vent, all the things. So Danielle at inspiremanagementgroup.com. It's super long, but you'll never forget it. So again, it's Danielle at inspiremanagementgroup.com. You can email me. I would love to chat with anybody that has questions because we had a lot of questions and they gave us a list. That was another thing. They gave us a list of people we could contact just to see like how hard was it, how what was the transition like.
yeah,
And so Inspire Management Group is something that we run out of this office, and we do consulting and different things. And you said lead with heart, and one of my favorite things to do in the world is to speak to people about just being a good human and having a kind heart. And so I would love to help anyone who has questions at all.
love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us in
Ooh,
today's conversation. If you have not already subscribed to the podcast newsletter, go to childcareconversations.com and subscribe to the newsletter. We actually have 2 episodes that go out every week. And with that, we have a newsletter that goes out every week. And sometimes those newsletters have specials and things that are not in the podcast or in the show notes. So with that, we can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Childcare Conversations.